Lorna Hajdini. On May 1st, 2026, there's no greater hook out there. Literally hours of social media, reels, carousels. If there ever was a candidate to complete Michael Douglas's Fatal Attraction, Basic Instinct, erotic thriller film trilogy, then John Doe the movie could well be it. The story broke when a civil complaint was filed a few days ago on the 27th of April at the New York County Supreme Court. The plaintiff filed anonymously under the pseudonym John Doe. The defendants were named as Lorna Hajdini and JP Morgan, the vast multinational investment bank. Unusually for a US case, or perhaps not so unusual, UK tabloid The Daily Mail reported on the filing. It's not an exaggeration to say the details are so lurid that the story quickly caught fire. Blandly, I would categorize the claims as a pattern of coercion and sexual misconduct. These involve non-consensual acts, occasioned with the aid of drugs, threats tied to career progression, and racial harassment. Head to Instagram to hear the full lurid details being poured over. You will find no end of reels. The court filing was withdrawn. It was pulled for corrections. But by then, the fire was raging out of control. And I have to say, even now, from what I can see, it shows little signs of abating. It's a big win for the Daily Mail. A few months ago in February, its publisher, DMGT, posted a 15% fall in digital advertising revenue from £174 million to £148 million. This was attributed to the introduction of AI overviews by search engine providers, resulting in fewer users clicking through to news websites. In the UK, we think of the Daily Mail as a rolled-up print newspaper, favoured by readers of a certain age and political persuasion. But in reality, the online version has global reach, and in the world of online advertising, the USA is a market of critical importance. So, not such a surprising move perhaps. I would have liked to have seen the filing. I have tried. Of course, there are reported excerpts around, but I'm not necessarily drawn to the salacious side of the allegations in the way that the world of social media has been. I'm interested in what the filing may or may not have said about due process in the investigation carried out at JP Morgan. Interestingly, in my search, AI helpfully offered to recreate what the filing could look like. I didn't take it up on that offer, intriguing as it is. If you're accompanying this story and are interested in what the internal investigation would have looked like, then let me make a similar offer to you to the one that my AI agent made to me. Having conducted 16 significant regulatory whistleblower and people investigations for peers of JP Morgan, Skadi doesn't work with JP Morgan at this time. I can offer insights in how this challenging conundrum may have been approached. So where to begin? Well, one last bit to add to the story. John Doe has been outed. Late last night UK time, his identity was revealed by reporting by the New York Post, which told its readers that sources had identified that the allegations made by a former employee of JP Morgan named Chirayu Rana. The sources also revealed that he filed an internal complaint in May 2025, which alleged race and gender-based harassment and abuse of power, before trying to negotiate a payoff that ran into millions to leave the company. Well, with that we have some background. And with that comes the first area of inquiry for me, the filing of an internal complaint. Whistleblowing is now an outdated term. I used it earlier because I still think it serves as a useful descriptive term which people understand. It has been replaced by the terms speak up or speaking up, with the person having the courage to speak up being known as a reporter. I want to make it clear at this stage that if I talk in this episode about the reporter, I'm referring to Mr. Rana, not somebody at the Daily Mail or the New York Post. People can get confused. I'm thinking that Mr. Rana chose to raise his complaint via Speak Up. As such, he would have the option to remain anonymous. I don't know if he exercised that right at the time, but we can see that he filed his civil complaint as John Doe, so I suspect he might have. I have also read reported in the New York Times that a JP Morgan spokesperson has said that Mr. Rana refused to participate in the internal investigation and declined to provide facts that would be central to support his allegations. That sounds terrible. But you know what? That's not entirely unusual, particularly when you have an anonymous reporter. When a matter comes through the Speak Up channel, there is a first layer of interaction with staff who try to understand and encourage reporters to give detail to help the bank investigate the matter. Whilst reports are getting longer, they can remain scant on actionable detail. The UK Financial Ombudsman made this observation in February 2026 in its response to the Financial Conduct Authority's review on the long-term impact of AI on retail financial services. If that's a bit of a mouthful, it's also known as the Mills Review. They observed that while helpful to some users, AI is causing complaint submissions to become lengthy, incoherent, and contain hallucinations. They have also seen parties take more entrenched positions in some cases. This will be familiar to those who listened to episode 59 of the Skadi podcast on AI sycophancy and trading. Those working on the Speak Up channel will send messages trying to get more detail, if needed, on a matter. I can say from experience you always want more information than you're given. But from a reporter's point of view, they may be fearful of retaliation, recriminations, or other adverse effects if they reveal who they are. Indeed, in my experience, it's common for reporters to worry that if they are too specific with information, they may be identified. They may feel, and I commonly see this, that they have given out enough information for the matter to be investigated. Operationally, I see this because it's critical that the bank has demonstrated that it has offered safe channels of communication. They have documented or have documentary evidence, like emails between the reporter and Speak Up, that they have recorded their attempts to be able to investigate the matter thoroughly. The flip side is that while the reporter might not wish those outside of the bank to know their identity, then perhaps inside the bank the nature of the complaint is such that they would reveal their identity. We can assume with some certainty that the reporter identified Miss Hajdini and the area where they both worked, which is cited as leveraged finance. Leveraged finance is debt financing for non-investment grade companies. I rubbed shoulders with that area during my career, as there is some crossover between issuers of that paper, leveraged loans, high-yield bonds, and the convertible bond financing which I used to do. And guess what? I have conducted investigations in leveraged finance. Understanding the potential nature of relationships in this area, one has to be clear on the work Mr. Rana and Miss Hajdini carried out for the bank. Central to the allegations, it seems, is that Miss Hajdini had a senior position and could exert control over the plaintiff's career. They both seem to have worked on the capital markets area. It's not possible to see clearly now, as both of their LinkedIn profiles have been removed. But the profiles of the two people they are said to have reported into remain on LinkedIn. This indicates the two were working on the origination of paper, as opposed to the day-to-day trading of leveraged loans and high-yield bonds in the secondary market. It's an important difference, as relationships between colleagues are different due to the nature of the day-to-day working patterns. The fact that Miss Hajdini and Mr. Rana reported into two different managers is cited as a deep flaw in the plaintiff's case. Further, it's been noted that Miss Hajdini seems to be a generalist, operating across consumer and retail, pharma and medtech, logistics, aerospace and defence. Mr. Rana's specialist areas were narrow by comparison, technology and software. For me, when you look closer at the two managers, it becomes less clear-cut. They both joined JP Morgan within months of each other in the early part of 2023. They both came from Silicon Valley Bank, the bank which collapsed in March 2023 and had a concentration of focus on tech and venture capital. Brandon Graffio, reportedly Miss Hajdini's boss, and John Walter, reportedly Mr. Rana's, looked to me like they could be a bit of a package, a duo, even co-heads. It might not say that on the official org charts, and looking at it from the outside, as the investigation would be, it might not be clear to them, whereas to those in the business, they might have that understanding. For me, I would want to understand whether Miss Hajdini, who reportedly joined the bank in 2010, remained focused on generalist sectors, or whether in 2023, when her new boss Brandon Graffeo arrived, she moved to align more closely to tech. I could see a world where, when Mr. Rana arrived in April 2024, he could have been brought across to support or bolster Miss Hajdini's efforts in tech due to more specialised knowledge. I have seen it reported that Mr. Rana was a senior vice president, whereas Miss Hajdini had reached executive director role. Working together, I can see Brandon Graffeo and John Walter drawing their feedback from Miss Hajdini as the senior of the two. Or indeed, they may have had no close working relationship. What matters for the investigation team is the evidence. What might that be? I've not been able to find evidence of deals on which Mr. Rana and Miss Hajdini were credited together. But that's not surprising in leverage finance. It would be unusual for individuals to be credited with transactions publicly. However, inside the bank, there should be records that the investigation team could utilise to determine this. Those working on deals, particularly handling non-public information, would need to be wall-crossed and recorded as part of the deal team. This is an area that Mr. Rana's counsel may focus on. I would expect this to be a well-managed area for JP Morgan, but I have been surprised, or should I say disappointed in the past. I'm talking here in general terms about the industry, not singling out JP Morgan. As I said, Skadi does not presently work with JP Morgan. The working relationship between Miss Hajdini and Mr. Rana could further be understood from asking their colleagues. This sounds straightforward, but again, could be complicated by how much is known by the investigation team. Reporting drawing on the now retracted court filing contains quite detailed information. But did the internal complaint made to the bank contain this detail? Indeed, if it did, it may not be necessary or justified to share the exact detail of allegations with wider team members simply to establish certain facts. The investigation team needs to proceed on a need-to-know basis. I would expect, though, to see evidence that the allegations raised have been addressed. The investigation needs to be proportional to the matter at hand and have the capability and flexibility to take account of new information that may be learned. All along the way, each decision made in the investigation over who to include, who to ask, what to ask, why it's being asked, needs to be documented in an audit trail that sets out the justification for the direction in which the investigation flows. And this is something that listeners at this point should recognise and understand. We are looking back at a matter after a media explosion. When this came to the investigators, the picture will naturally have been very different. It should also be recognised that any investigation can cause a level of disruption for the team. I would expect that each person being interviewed will have been notified that they are being asked to help with a confidential matter and that the bank has a policy in place to protect them from retaliation for taking part in the interview. Also, that they will be dealt with harshly should they in turn retaliate against other team members. The fact that it took a court filing and the action of the Daily Mail to bring matters to the attention of the wider public indicates that confidentiality around the investigation was maintained. One piece of good news for the investigation team is that the time Miss Hajdini and Mr. Rana worked in the bank, whether together or not, is relatively narrow. It also would seem to cover one jurisdiction, the USA. As I understand it, the bank did conduct reviews of emails, communications, and phone records. No two bounds about it, communication reviews are costly. In a global bank, they can also cross borders, often with differing data protection and privacy laws. There are also different means of communication. The investigation team will only be able to look at what has been captured within the bank's own systems. Email is straightforward, using Coordinated Universal Time or UTC, lining up when emails were sent and received is comfortably handled by commercial e-discovery packages. Chat rooms can be harder. Individual chats sent are self-contained, But permanent rooms, where teams often come together for collective information sharing and discussion, can produce endless streams of messages. Processing these can be costly. Data analysis has been a great innovator for sequencing. AI continues to enhance this work, enabling investigation teams to bring together streams of communications, emails, chats, voice calls to line up sequencing. One can add into that access data showing when individuals were in locations together. All well and good if communication has taken place over the bank's systems. Bear in mind, though, too, that all of this comes with a cost. It can be a heavy one at that. The question would be, was the investigation that the bank carried out at the time proportional to the information that it had? Communications, and bear in mind the nature of the details in the civil complaint, are not always over the bank's channels. There would be no recording of individuals' spoken interactions, although it is possible that they may have been witnessed by other team members, for example. The position of the bank is plain, a spokesperson saying, "We don't believe there's any merit to these claims." Whether this is an end to the matter remains to be seen. To anyone observing, it is apparent that huge damage has been done by this episode. There's been damage to the individuals concerned, but also one has to recognise the impact to their families, co-workers and careers. While social media influencers gloat over the veracity of claims tested out in the court of public opinion, my hope is that the individuals at the heart of this matter have the care and support they need to navigate this complex set of circumstances. You've been listening to the Skadi podcast. Till next time.